A disturbing trend amongst publishers over the last decade or so that I'm sure you've noticed is to release games completely broken and just say, we'll patch it later. Most of the time, these don't get patched and they end up dying almost immediately. However, there are a few games that break this mold. A few games that end up becoming legendary despite being totally broken on launch. Should we praise the publisher or devs for fixing up the mess they started? No, I don't think so. I think we should definitely just expect them to make a game that isn't broken on launch and just work, for the people that pre-ordered it. But they have those pre-orders, so they're going to release a broken game anyway. Now, I'm mostly going to be focusing on first-person shooters in this video, so if I don't include a game you're thinking of, it's probably because it's not a first-person shooter. For example, No Man's Sky is one of the games that came to my mind, but again, it's not really a first-person shooter. I will give it a shout out here, though. Halo Master Chief Collection. This was the thing I bought my Xbox One for, the old, ugly-ass DVR-looking one. I got MCC with it, I popped it into my Xbox One, and it was not functional. I'm not saying that as an exaggeration, it was literally not functional. You could kind of play the campaign, however, there was a lot of bugs, achievements straight up didn't work most of the time, and co-op, good luck. However, where it was literally not functional was the multiplayer. The main reason most people were buying this, to have the multiplayer of almost every Halo game in one neat package that you could swap back and forth to whenever you wanted. I was so excited about this because Halo Combat Evolved is by far my favorite multiplayer game, and there wasn't really a proper way to play it online aside from a really janky PC port. And now we were finally getting it. Finally, we were gonna have a new one, maybe with better hit reg, maybe just a functional multiplayer CE online variant, and you literally couldn't play it. No matter how long you searched, you would never find a game. Never. It quite literally was broken. Eventually, they would fix this, but it took some time. This wasn't a case of a day one patch fixing everything. No, this took quite a few years. To be honest, I'm convinced that MCC wouldn't have ever been fixed up if they didn't decide to port it to PC. That's really when they started improving it. That's also when they added Halo Reach. But fast forward to today, and you can jump on MCC, play any of the Halo games that are in there, literally every Halo game with the exception of Halo 5, and it's just a solid experience. This is really what Halo should have had on launch. It's so easy to get my friends that have somehow not played Halo to just buy MCC, and you got all these games right there. And unless you're stuck with only a PlayStation or only a Switch, you will have access to the Halo games now. These games are pretty old, so even if your computer isn't great, you will be able to run them. And if you're on Xbox, then you're set. Battlefield 4, good God, this game was disgusting on launch. I don't really know where to begin. Aside from the obvious crashing issues and lagging out and all the basic fundamental things that should just work, but instead they just don't. Like the hit registration, for example, was some of the worst I had ever seen in any game ever. That took them many years to fix up, and even to this day, it doesn't feel as good as Battlefield 3 to me, even with a higher tick rate. And Battlefield 4 was clearly not play tested enough because some weapons were better than everything else, and the maps were just downright hideous compared to Battlefield 3. Battlefield 4 really encouraged vehicle spam because so many of these maps just did not have enough cover. Large, open spaces where infantry can't really do a whole lot. In contrast to Battlefield 3, it was awful. Battlefield 3's maps had a really good mixture of infantry space and vehicle space. It felt even and really damn good. But then we get into the slew of bugs we had in Battlefield 4, and I'm gonna stop myself and just mention one that I find is the funniest, because if I do anything else, I'm gonna be here for an hour talking about them. At launch, if you suppressed one of the guns, it literally suppressed the entire server for everyone.
Turn around. Yeah. All right, you ready? People... Same. It's so good, it breaks game.
Not even kidding you. You shot one gun with a suppressor, sound cuts out for everyone in the entire 64-player server. This is the level of broken this game was at launch. But fast forward to today, and a lot of people look at this game as being the best Battlefield game ever. I personally disagree. I think this game is just a worse Battlefield 3 in my opinion, but depending on what's my favorite, kind of fluctuates back and forth between Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 1 anyway. What's most frustrating about this is it's like EA learned and then unlearned. Battlefield 4 was an absolute mess on launch, but Battlefield 1 was one of the most polished experiences I have ever played. It was amazing. I loved this game. And then Battlefield 5 went downhill, didn't really have that polish, didn't have the communication, it was going weird ways, and then Battlefield 2042 happened. It's like they learned that they can just release broken games without caring from the experience they got from Battlefield 4. 4 was still fresh when they made Battlefield 1, so I guess they learned for a brief moment in time, and then stopped caring again. Cyberpunk, this is probably one of the games everybody thinks of with this topic. CD Projekt Red was a very respected studio. Seemingly everyone loved The Witcher, and on top of that, they had their own DRM-free store. GOG. And it's fantastic. I actually really like it. It's a good alternative to Steam when Steam is either doing something stupid or just doesn't have something on their store. And oftentimes, GOG will pick up games that are abandonware that you can't get anywhere else. For example, Betrayer, fantastic game, but for whatever reason, the devs decided to pull it off of Steam. It's a complicated situation, so I'm not blaming anyone here, and it seems like they just didn't need to have it there. They were just trying to further their careers. But years later, GOG picked it up, and it's free on GOG. You can get it right now for free and have an amazing experience. CD Projekt Red was known for doing stuff like this, so no one had any reason to think Cyberpunk would be a complete failure on launch. Some people had thoughts that they were promising too much for this, but oh my god, even they had no idea. So yeah, this was kind of a really broken game. If you played on PC and had a good system, you could brute force a lot of the performance issues, but you still dealt with a ton of bugs. If you played on console, it was even worse. And if you played on last-gen console, it was basically unplayable. Although, to be fair, I don't know what they were doing even trying to put Cyberpunk on last-gen consoles. That was never going to go well. People were demanding refunds left and right. CD Projekt Red was offering them left and right. Sony even removed this game from their store. It was so broken. But the content was there. They just had a lot of work to make it playable. This should not have released when it did. It should have gone back in the oven for another couple of years. But fast forward to today, and people do regard it as one of the better games ever released. They're still releasing DLC for it, and from what I can tell, people really like that DLC. And the last one I want to talk about is Halo 5. Okay, I know, I get it. The single player is awful. It was awful back then. It's still awful now. Stick with me, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm going to be talking about Halo 5's multiplayer. And it kind of only fits with this video because it wasn't really broken or unpolished or anything like that on launch. It just had a major lack of content. If you liked competitive Halo, competitive 4v4, and you missed that Halo 2 and 3 feel, then Halo 5 was your jam. Sure, the maps were mediocre at best and definitely gave you that feeling of being able to get shot at from any direction possible, but as a competitive Halo game, this was fantastic. The problem was, that's all Halo 5 had to offer. Well, that and Warzone, if you wanted to play a MOBA version of Halo for some reason. I didn't. I thought it was garbage, so the only thing that existed for me is the 4v4. There was so much content here that was straight up missing. Where were the goofy playlists like Team Action Sack? Where was stuff like Griffball? Where was doubles? Where was Big Team Battle? If you played competitive Halo, then your idea of what made Halo Halo wasn't Halo 5. But for vast majority of people, that wasn't Halo for them, so it didn't offer them Halo. And this is probably where that argument comes from, where people say that Halo 5 isn't a Halo game multiplayer-wise, which I vehemently disagree with. They just literally didn't have the Halo stuff they wanted. But fast forward 7 months or so, and suddenly there was more content in Halo 5 than any other Halo game. It's not an exaggeration to say that. Halo 5 turned into something amazing. There was all those stupid, silly game modes. You had Griffball back, you had Big Team Battle back, you had doubles back. Everything you wanted in the previous Halo games was here, including, arguably at the time, the best version of Forge. I seriously cannot rant enough about how amazing Halo 5 ended up, but the only thing I really wish they changed is that all this stuff was there at launch. Hey, big thanks to my YouTube channel members for supporting this channel. It really helps me. This is how I pay my bills and rent, and YouTube Pay is kind of all over the place. An extra big thanks to RJ Tuvlin and Nib70 for being tier 3 super supporters. They really only get a special shout out and not really anything more other than tier 2, so they're doing this purely to support me. That is not lost on me. That's awesome. Hey, thanks to the rest of you guys for watching this video. I got other videos on screen you can watch if you're interested. You can subscribe by clicking the top right. You can hang out with me on my Twitch if you follow that, bottom right. Or you can follow me on Twitter if you want to. Jarek_Dragon. I tweet out a lot more silly stuff than what I usually post on this channel. I think it's more of the unfiltered real me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.